Welcome, Outlaws, to the Black Gold Saloon. I'm your host, Dr. Holiday, and this is Combat Explained for complete beginners who likely just barely installed Arknights and skipped past all the tutorials and are confused about how to play or you're feeling overwhelmed and uncertain. That's okay, I got you covered. This is just a quick and dirty guide to combat. I won't be covering all the other aspects like base building, team composition, and all the many different types of operators in the same classes. Just straight up combat. I also got some nice training wheels for you, which is a very simplistic strategy for planning out how you will deploy your operators. It'll be enough to get you clearing stages for a while. So unfortunately, in order to explain combat, I do have to go over the different types of stats and classes. I know there is a wide variety of types within the classes, but don't worry. For the sake of brevity, we're just going to go over the fundamental types that are within the 3-star units. So DP, right? It's the most important stat. It's a deployment cost. It's depicted as a C inside a diamond, and referred to as DP. It's normally regained at a rate of 1 per second or using Vanguard skills. Now, in order to deploy an operator, you must pay the necessary deployment cost. If not, you will not be able to bring them out. Even if you have necessary DP, if your operator was retreated voluntarily or because their HP fell to 0, then you must wait until you can redeploy them. So that brings us to redeployment, right? Redeployment is shown as an hourglass icon. Very slow means your redeployment is recharged very slow, and fast is, well, fast. The actual time is not fixed. Average could mean anywhere between 20 and 60 seconds. But for simplicity, just assume that anybody at average will take about a minute. Now, melee or ranged, whether your unit is melee or ranged, it affects where they can be placed. So melee units can only be placed on melee tiles. Let's bring up some tiles, right? Let's pull up the map. Come on. There we go. There's the melee tiles, and then range units can only be placed on range tiles, which are above the ground. Some units, like Shaw, who is from the specialist class, they can be deployed on either melee or range tile. Now, stats, right? Let's pull the stats. All right, so HP is shown by a cross, which we're all familiar with. You know, it's like the medic cross you see on tents and stuff. The higher your HP, the more damage your operator can withstand before they're forced to retreat. How much HP you lose is based on the opponent's attack, right? Shown with the cross swords. And whether the damage you take is either physical or arts-based, right? Physical damage is reduced with defense, which is shown with a shield. Now, you would think that an enemy with a 240 attack is reduced to 0 if your defense is 240, but it does not work that way. You still take a minimum amount of damage, but for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to say that the physical damage you take is the enemy's attack minus your defense. Now, arts damage is a bit more complicated. So let's just so if we click on here, if we click on Steward here, we see that his resistance shown with the double diamond, right, is 15. It means that he takes 15% less damage from arts attacks. Now, there are attacks that look physical, like a swing from a sword or a shot from an arrow, but they can still do arts damage. But you can easily find that out by either clicking on the operator's profile or the enemy's. So I say operator, right? So let's click on Moose. And let's look at her branch. So she's an arts fighter. And because she's an arts fighter, she deals arts damage. And if you've seen her before, she does like a little scratchy scratch animation. And also, if we look at an enemy, right, under enemy info, we see that this caster, right, deals ranged arts damage, right? And this guy is just ranged, so implying that it's just physical. Now, I say range, right? Range is key in Arknights. You must know the range of your units. That's extremely important, as well as the range of their skills before you either deploy them or even just consider adding them at all on your roster. Attack range is on your operator's profile, and it's shown as if they are facing to the right. So let's click on Cruise, and it's shown as if she was facing to the right. And we see that she has a range here of, I think it's 3x4, 4x3. I can't remember how the pattern works, but you know what I mean, right? And facing them in a different direction, it's going to alter which squares they can attack. So if you face them upwards, it will be as if up is actually right. So you'll see what I mean, like if you just move them around on the tile, right? Now, let's see here. Oh, okay, so now let's go back to melee, right? So melee, it implies that enemies have to be in close proximity to be attacked, or ranged means that they can be attacked further away. So an operator's range is determined by their class and type. Like, let's go, for example, a marksman, right? Or let's go to snipers, right? We got two different snipers. One of them is a marksman sniper. But as you see, her range is different than than catapult, who's an artilleryman, right? The range is also affected by or it can be affected if they're promoted. So catapult is E1. She just has those little those basic wings, right? When we look at an E2 operator who's been promoted, like a meteorite, you see she's got the double wings, and you also see that she has a greater range. And what else? Oh, and also keep in mind that certain skills also change an operator's range. If an enemy is not in your attack range, you cannot attack them. And the inverse is also true. If you are not in the enemy's attack range, they cannot attack you either. So make sure to use that to your advantage. Block, it's a highly crucial stat. Keeping track of how many enemies are being blocked and how many of your units can block all at once, it'll make the difference between you failing or succeeding. So let's say if you deploy Plume, right, in front of that blue box. Now Plume can only block one enemy at a time, right? But let's say two enemies pile up on her. The extra one will leak, move into your blue box, give you, the doctor, an atomic sandpaper wedgie, and then you just fail to clear. So now defenders, right? So like on the other side, defenders like Beagle can block 3 units at once, right? That's another thing that makes defenders really great. They can block a whole bunch of enemies all at once and buy you some time. Or if you have a promoted AoE guard, like maybe Estelle or Spencer or Spectre. Yeah, Spectre. They can block 3 enemies. So like at certain choke points, areas where like you're threatening to get overrun, you might want to put like a 3-block defender over here. Now skills can be activated either manually or automatically, right? So we look at Cruce's skill. We see that it's a skill level 7. It takes 4 SP to charge. SP is regained when she attacks the enemy, offensive recovery, right? And lucky for you, the skill just automatically activates. You don't have to activate it yourself or anything. So, most importantly though, we also see what the skill does, right? It's a double shot. It deals, well, it says 140, but it really means it deals an extra 40% attack for each shot, which is really good actually. Like I've seen Cruce sometimes out DPS Jessica, right? Like Cruce is able to, I think Cruce does more damage than Jessica at this level, but I'm not sure. But sometimes it does look like it. So anyhow, let's see here. Oh, now if we take a look at Vanilla's skill, right? It tells us that it's also skill level 7. Now it starts at 6 SP. It takes 20 SP to activate. SP is automatically recovered, meaning 1 SP per second. And the skill must be manually activated by clicking on the unit, right? It lasts for 10 seconds and also tells you what the skill does, right? Now, what's frustrating is that the range of a unit's skill is not accurately shown. Like I can just show you Spot right now, right? His skill called secondary healing mode, right? It actually has a different range. This is not the range. Like his range is actually 3x3, so it's like 3x3 with him in the center. But if you click around, right, and you try to find the range, click on here, nothing. It doesn't show it to you. It'll show it to you like when you're deployed on the map, or if you go to a website like GamePress and go to Arknights, it'll show you the range of all the operators' skills. That's a handy dandy website to go to. All right, so let's go over the classes. Now I know there's a whole bunch of them, right? I'm only gonna go over for like 2 of the basic types, and I'm gonna go try to knock them out quick, right? So let's go with the Vanguards, right? Oh, Vanguards. Now, Vanguards are cheap to deploy. They typically have skills which get you more DP. They're meant to be used at the very beginning of a stage to intercept enemies, and you hold those enemies, you attack them, right, until you have the DP you need to bring out stronger or even like just supportive units like medics. So Vanguards buy you time, and they literally, or not literally, but you know what I mean, and they buy you bigger and better operators. Also, if you notice, there's a different Vanguard in my squad here, right? This one is a charger, right? They get 1 DP after they defeat an enemy, and not only that, when you retreat them, the original DP cost, yeah, you get that DP cost back. So now these kind of Vanguards, the chargers, they do have better stats overall. They usually have higher attack, defense, even. In fact, I think they could even have better HP. But the trade-off is they can only block 1. And not only that, they have a fast attack speed. So these Charger Vanguards, they do hit hard, but they can't block them in enemies. So that's the sacrifice you make when you use a Charger Vanguard. So guards, now these are melee units, right? They typically deal physical damage, unlike, or there's exceptions like Moose, right? Some can strike at a further range, and others can do arts damage, right? Sometimes, and this one can do it with the skills. Now, so we got this Midnight, who's a ranged. Well, I mean, he's called a lord, but we call him. We also call him range guards. He can hit enemies at range, even flyers, right? And then you have, I guess, a Centurion guard. We also call them AOE guards because they can attack all blocked enemies, you know, like an AOE. And then now let's move on to defenders. Now defenders, they have higher HP, higher defense, but typically lower attack, right? Now some can do arts damage, like Dernar here, right? But that's with their skills and stuff. But let's just focus on 2 basic types. Protector types, which is what Beagle is, right? They have higher defense than other defenders, and they also got special skills which buff their defense even higher, right? So they're ideal for stalling, right, and tanking lots of physical damage, especially from like really scary bosses that hit with that hit with physical damage. And now we got guardian types, right? Like a Spot over here. Guardians have lower defense than protectors, but they have skills which provide healing to the operators that are around them, right? They also have better resistance. As you can see, Spot has 10% resistance. And then now we move on to range units. And let's start with the quintessential range unit, right? Like a sniper. They're a definitive range unit. And as such, they can only be deployed on range tiles. So to keep it short, just cover two basic types, right? We got marksmen, also called single target snipers. They have higher attack and a fast attack speed. They're ideal for mowing down regular like trash mobs or the mobs that come in waves. Those typically have a lower defense, right, and lower HP. Now, marksmen, they do prioritize aerial units, right, like drones. The drones like to fly right towards the blue box, and these marksman snipers are excellent for shooting them down. Let's see here. Oh, and we also got artillery snipers, or no, actually artillerymen, also called AoE snipers. They have an even higher attack, but they have a slower attack speed. Now, they do splash damage though. They do AoE damage, like AoE physical damage. So they're great for mowing down crowds of enemies. So if you have a bunch of lower HP, lower defense enemies just bunched together, a unit like Catapult will like mow them down. Each shot will do splash damage. And they also have a higher deployment cost. So now we got the other type of range unit called casters, right? Let's see here. Oh, this one's a core caster. We also refer to them as a single target casters. Now compared to like a typical marksman sniper, they do have a high attack, but they have a slower attack speed. And they do also target a single enemy. And they do also have a pretty good resistance, but like other range units, they have a low HP. Now, the other type of casters, we have a splash caster, but we also call them AoE casters. They deal AoE arts damage. They do have a higher attack than the other caster, than the single target. They do have a shorter range, but I mean, who cares? I mean, they have splash damage. They're great for dealing with the crowds. And they have an even slower attack speed. And they have a pretty high DP cost, you know. Now, these are medics. Medics are very important. They keep your army alive. So let's see here. They're also range units. They heal friendly units, including themselves, and they heal using their attack, right? Now, we got regular medics. We also refer to them as single target medics. It's very simple, right? They have a lot of them have skills that buff their own healing, right? And now the other type is multi-target medics. You got Breeze here. They have a different range, right? But they're able to heal up to 3 allies simultaneously, right? Which is really great for dealing with enemies that do splash damage. So if you have enemies that are hitting your squads with AoE, if you have a AoE medic, they can heal all of your allies all at once. Whereas a single target medic will have to heal them one at a time, and by the time your single target medic is done healing one unit and move on to the next one, that the cumulative splash damage it already killed off like 1 or 2 of your guys. So that's why an AoE medics are very good. So, all right, and let's see. Oh, and let's go over the supporters, right? I can't really fit them, so let's go to Orchid, right? So these are also range units like casters that deal arch damage, except they typically slow down enemy units. They slow down their movement speed. There are other like support units. They do all sorts of different things, like they summon extra allies, right? Like summons, and supporters can even apply debuffs to enemies or buffs to your allies. But for now, let's just focus on like this Dessel binder here, whatever. We also have a similar type like Podenko here. But yeah, those are the supporters in a nutshell. And now we also got specialists. So specialists can be ranged, melee, or even both. There are 2 basic types, right? The first type are called executors, right? Like Gravel. who can redeploy. Now, they can be redeployed much more quickly. Like, you see where it says fast, and even then, it says significantly reduced redeployment time. So that is extremely important. And Gravel is strategically powerful, right? Because she can absorb a great deal of damage. As you can see here with her skills, a big buff in defense for a little while, and a big buff in her max HP for a little while. A lot of people like to just stick to this one, and that's it. And she's really great for taking heat off of other operators in the area. Like, let's say if there's some scary casters that are threatening to like shoot down all your allies, like they're getting mowed down or about to get mowed down. You bring out a unit like Gravel, so she can tank all of the attacks, right? By taking advantage of the aggro. Now you have a different kind of executor that's offensive based, like Project Red. Project Red is kind of the opposite of Gravel. Instead of a big buff in defense, she has a big buff in offense. She gets a buff here, and she gains dodge, right? So she may not be as tough, but she has a chance to like dodge attacks. Or she can also stun units, which is great for reducing heat off of your allies through different methods. Oh, and then finally, we have push. Well, we call them pushers and pullers, right? This one's a push stroker, and then we have Rope, who's a hook master, right? But no, you just call them pushers and pullers. Let's see here. Oh, and if there are like, let's say, holes on the map or ledges you can kick enemies off of, right? They can push or pull an enemy into them, like it was some kind of old Bugs Bunny cartoon. So, and it is just as fun to watch. Like it is. I mean, I never get tired of like watching Shaw, like just Sparta kick an enemy into a hole, and just do an instant kill. It's just really great. Now, one thing I did mention earlier with Gravel though is that using her to deal with aggro. So aggro is another important thing to manage, right? It is very key to surviving in Arknights and clearing stages. So call it aggro, enmity, hate, aggression, whatever. So enemies, right? They're going to prioritize operators who are closest to them, right? So let's pull up a map. So let's say you have an operator here, an operator over there, and you have a scary caster coming in, right? So that caster is going to prioritize the enemy closest to them, right? And the operator who was most recently deployed, right? So let's say you deploy let's say you deploy this like a medic here first and a defender here, and the caster's doing a circuit like running around here. The caster is going to be targeting this medic, right, for a little bit, but once they get within range of this defender, right, they're going to start attacking the defender, because that defender you brought out last. So you need to get into the habit of deploying your squishy range units first, like a tougher sort of like guard, next. On guards they have like higher defense and HP, and lastly, units that have high HP, defense, and or resistance, such as defenders, right? Like maybe an arch defender. I forgot what they're called, the official name, but kind of like Durnar. So that way, they bear the brunt of enemy attacks, like they're meant to do. So now, I'm sorry for the explanation. I did try to condense this and make it a quick and dirty guide, right? But so what we're going to do is we're going to clear map 4-2 using the basic training wheel strategy, right? So training wheels, you use this for handling maps. This is for when you're a beginner. So let's go to here. All right, so we start by pulling up the map first, and we first decide where you're going to place your medic. And that is because any operator outside of your medic's range, well, they're just going to be sitting duck, right? They're going to be losing health, and they're not going to have any way of regaining health unless maybe you have a healing defender or something. But generally, operators outside of a medic's range are just gonna get mowed down, you know, unless you heal them. So that's why a good beginner strategy is to make medic placement, right, and medic type the very core focus, right, of where the rest of your operators are going to be. And as I mentioned, or maybe I didn't say it specifically, but it's going to be the first thing that we plan, right? Now, just because we're planning it doesn't mean we're going to do it, right? So what I mean is we're still going to bring out our Vanguards first, right? But we're bringing out our Vanguards based, or where we place our Vanguards is going to be based on what range a medic can cover. So let's go here. So all right, so if I put a regular medic, right? Let's go back and check out the regular medics. So if you remember, the regular medics have this kind of range. It's similar to a sniper, actually. Yeah, similar to a sniper range. AoE medics have a different range. They're like focused here. All right. So then we go back to the map here. Now, let's see here. Where was I? So if I put a regular medic on this square, we can heal any operator in this area, right? So anybody contained within here, right? Within, and even themselves, right over here. So anything within this circuit, right? And the circuit itself too, you can heal. If we have so we place a medic here. We can also put like a sniper or like some kind of caster or whatever over here. You can face them up, down, left, whatever. But if, let's say, you decide to do something else, let's say you put an AoE medic, once again, like Breeze, right? And if you put her like on this square, when we face her to the right, it's going to be 3, 3, 3, 3, right? So what's funny is that she's going to cover the same area, right? The same circuit, but instead this square is going to be the one that's free, that's open, right? For you to put a different range unit. I mean, you can put like another medic, you can put catapult, right? Like an AoE sniper. In fact, that's a good idea, actually. I think, yeah, putting catapult here facing to the right would be pretty cool. So yeah, so let's do that. We're going to have an AoE medic here, catapult there, and then our Vanguards, like, well, your Vanguards, now you don't have to put your Vanguard here, right? I mean, that's like a very, like, psychologically, right? You're tempted to put your a defender or a Vanguard or whatever right here. No, you can actually put one right here in this square, or if the enemies are coming in both in here and in there, you could maybe split up the operators into two, right? If let's say you want to take some heat off of whoever's guarding here, but the trade-off is that you would eat up another, like another deployment slot, right? Because you can only deploy so many operators at a time. And also, we're not going to plan anything else beyond. Like, I kind of went kind of far with, like, normally you only go as far as like planning where your Vanguards are, but we're not going to plan anything else because we don't know what path the enemies are going to come in, right? We don't know what type of enemies are going to come from which square. We don't know what path those enemies will take. Like, you might have a scary caster doing this, or you might have a scary caster doing that. Like, we don't know that, right? We don't know where they're going to come from. So right now, let's just focus on just our planning is just going to be medic, Vanguard, maybe a sniper, and that's it. All right, so I cleared this map like about a couple times, so I have an idea of where the enemies are going to go. But let's try to approach this as if we don't know where they're going to hit us from. So, all right, so I'm going to do like the newbie thing. I'm going to just put my Vanguard over here. And see the route. Okay, so the route that they're taking is they're going to go this way. So it would be a good idea. Actually, it would be a good idea to bring out our catapult over here. She'll be able to cover. She won't be able to hit them when they go over there, but she'll at least hit them when they crowd up over here. Next, let's bring out our medic facing right. If you notice, I'm bringing out my range units first. Remember what it's about, aggro. And let's get a sniper, maybe. I'm tempted to have her over there. If I put her here, she won't be able to attack this area. So I put her here because I want her to kill the casters quickly. And I'm tempted to put my caster here, facing left. We can cover this area. So all the range units have been, all the squishy ones have been deployed first, right? Now, let's see, we could get Poppy Car facing up because a whole bunch of them are going this route, right? And then next, I'm gonna have Midnight also facing up, so you can cover this area too. And last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna retreat Vanilla, right? I bring out Spot. Reason why is because if let's say they go over here and they overrun Poppy Car, he'll be able to block them, and Poppy Car can finish him off. If let's say things get really scary, we've got lots of casters and they're threatening to kill everybody, we can activate her skill, right? As well as his skill. Remember how I mentioned that you can't see his range, right? His is like 3x3, but now you can see it because we're in battle. Alright, we're doing good. Decent damage. And if you notice, the casters are targeting Midnight, right? Midnight actually has some resistance. Let's raise the healing here. Let's raise some healing as well. The skill. Let's just go crazy. Activate everything. Right, and no problem, right? Now, with this training wheel strat, there is one thing that we neglected to do, right? This is a bit more advanced, but it's not really. It ain't like esports stuff. I think it's very easy. We didn't check the enemies first, right? We should have done. The very first thing we do is right. So these. So I mean, you're probably not familiar with the dogs, but the dogs, they move really fast, and they like to run right to your base. So normally you need like a Vanguard or two to block them off. And this unit, he looks like a typical like a mob unit, like a trash mob, the ones that like to swarm you. And if you notice, you look at their stats, remember all the stats that I mentioned, they're all ranked at D. So these are also actually kind of higher. This one actually has high attack. When you see red on an enemy, like red here, red and red, that means that they have higher stats. This one has a higher attack than this guy. But let's look at their well, first of all, let's look at the types, right? We have melee, we have a ranged, right? We have ranged art. So this one, yeah, obviously the arts damage. This one actually does melee, just melee damage. But what do they? Let's try to find something in common. Let's look at their defensive stats, right? This one has very high resistance. It's really high. It's A. This one also has high resistance, right? But these have low resistance. This one's a little bit higher. But if you notice, what they all have in common is their defense is lower, right? They have lower defense. So what we should have done is, instead of running Steward here, facing to the left, we should have just had another sniper, because all the enemies had low defense, right? Well, I mean, there were some that have lower resistance, but no, what they all had in common was they had low defense. So we should have rolled with with just a straight up physical offensive strategy, right? We could have replaced Steward with like another sniper, like what we have here. Oh, like Anakil, right? And if you notice, Midnight, he has a skill, right? But it deals arts damage, and that arts damage is going to be very tiny, because look at that. Look at that high resistance. So if I had him facing upwards and he was hitting this guy arts damage, and so Steward, no, we should have had like some kind of a ranged or some kind of a physical based unit, right? There ain't too many physical like range guards. I know Lu Shahe is one, but he's only available in a certain event, right? It's been a while. Now Arena though, he has a secondary ability. He does stop blocking, but his attacks they do twice and they do physical damage. So we could have used his skill instead of Midnight, right? We could have instead. Actually, no. Yeah, so yeah, we could have used Arena or even Cutter. Like Cutter, these skills are both physical, and they both have a ranged aspect to them, right? So we could have even used Cutter instead facing upwards. So anyhow, that's another thing you could do, like an extra way of like expanding the training wheel strat, right? You can also just adapt it by just looking at what the enemies all have in common, right? Anyhow, it's been nice having you around, Outlaws. I appreciate you tuning in, and y'all welcome back anytime to my saloon.